I am on. You know it.
I'm on. Estoy on.
Hi guys, I'm on. Ci sono.
I'm on. Je suis on.
I am on. My home.
I'm on. Ich bin on.
สวัสดีค่ะ ไปด้วยกันนะคะ
I'm on. Estoy conectado.
I'm on. Estamos on.
Saya on.
I'm on. Let's go.
Let's be on.
Hello, my name is Chris White from FruitNet Media, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's Asia Briefing. Asia Briefing is our series of 6 special broadcasts that we're putting together here for you at FruitNet to give you the lowdown on what's hot in Asia at the moment. At Asia Briefing, I'm joined down the line from our new broadcast studio here in London with my team of expert editors and analysts who live and breathe Asia every day of the year. And of course, we're joined by you, businessmen and women from across the world of fresh fruits and vegetables, people who already deal with Asia or who want to deal with Asia. Today at Asia Briefing, we're going to be talking logistics. Yes, I know it's an obvious thing to say, but without logistics, none of our fruits and vegetables are going anywhere. And that's why it's so important to find out what's happening in logistics today and what may happen tomorrow. I've been speaking to the logistics expert Alex von Stempel about some of these issues, and he's going to be discussing these and many more with a bunch of expert speakers and panelists at Cool Logistics Asia, which is streaming live at Asia Fruit Logistica On from the 18th to the 20th of November. Let's hear what Alex had to say. Good. Okay. Well, hi, Alex. Nice to see you. Now, tell us, you're organising the program for the Cool Logistics Asia, and you've been doing that for several years at Asia Fruit Logistica, of course, but this time it's online. So tell us a bit. You've got essentially over 3 days: the Wednesday, the Thursday, and the Friday in October. In November, excuse me. The 18th, the 19th, and the 20th, and you've broken them into 3 separate sections. There's one about new perspectives for fresh produce logistics, with a bunch of speakers. Then on the second day, on Thursday the 19th, it's the same session, and then then you're looking at new opportunities and food logistics solutions, and then you're going to look at this whole area of technology and fresh produce e-commerce and the impact on the logistics sector. If we could, let's take them in kind of day-by-day chunks and go back to that first day, which is the Wednesday, the 18th of November, when you've got a good bunch of speakers there talking about this whole area of new perspectives for fresh produce logistics. What are some of these new perspectives? How do you see that in the logistics sector?
Well, one of the biggest challenges that we're having in the logistics sector, the perishable logistics sector, is in terms of actual delivery of perishable cargo in time as promised and as agreed with the exporters and the consignees. The problem that we've had last year, particularly at the beginning of the year, was the issue that there weren't enough containers. So in other words, there is this issue of the shortage of reefer containers, which we will address at Cool Logistics this year in particular, to see what are the lessons that the shipping companies have basically taken away from the challenges we had experienced earlier this year. You will remember that particularly in China, some of the reefer containers couldn't be discharged. There were shortages in ports.
And this was to do with the pandemic, was it? Or was this to do with the pandemic? Or
yes, it was to do with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And the situation is that there have been shipping companies and leasing companies have invested in more reefer containers, yet because of the increasing imbalance of trade between the East and the West, which is basically dictated by two major factors. On one hand, it is the pull factor into the US of dry cargo, which we've seen particularly in the last few weeks. And at the same time, the continuing pull factor for reefer containers into China, driven not by fruit, but by meat. So the main issue here is that you've got a disparity of reefer containers which are not in the right place, which are therefore exacerbating the whole issue of getting the reefer containers where and when they are needed.
So it's not necessarily a question that there aren't enough reefer containers, it's just that they're in the wrong place.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how is this going to unravel? I mean, how is this going to, not unravel, but how is it going to mend itself? And how long is that going to take, in your opinion? You're an expert on these things.
Well, there's a famous crystal ball. The situation is that, look at it from a perspective of the cargo owners, and that is the way you are looking at it. But look at the expectors from the shipper, the container lines. They are actually sitting pretty at the moment because they can dictate terms. They have got the capacity, which is the reason why in the first session of Cool Logistics Asia, I have created that topic called Capacity is King. So in other words, it is the shipping companies that will be able to dictate terms insofar as positioning a reefer container will cost the trade more. It will be more difficult for, let's say, logistics service providers to get the reefer containers because they don't own them, but they will basically, they manage them on behalf of the cargo owners. They will not be able, in some cases, to fulfill all their requirements. So there's going to be the reason why we have driven this down the second session in the afternoon is why I'm getting three of cargo owners to put their views across, how they will react to what the carriers will have said in the opening session.
Mm-hmm. But Alex, I hope I'm right in thinking that I don't think anybody in the fruit business would sit there and think, gee, the reefer cargo operators are in the driving seat for once. I mean, they've been in that position for years, haven't they? They've always been the ones who've essentially dictated terms. And I know that many people, many fruit producers and exporters and distributors have quite a kind of, how should I say, pretty combative. That's the word.
I think that's what we're looking at. Yes. Well, I mean, if I were here to impersonate the reefer carriers, we would say, well, actually, transport has been far too cheap. If you look at the cost of shipping a container and looking after the unit, I mean, the fuel costs for the shipping companies, that's a major issue, even though it's been softened because of the collapse of the oil price. It's still one of the key issues. There's the energy cost of running a containers on board, in ports. There's the issue of, as I said, marrying these increasing trade imbalances, which is actually a commercial risk for the asset providers. And the assets for the shipping companies are divided on one hand into the ships on the other hand, it's the reefer containers. Now, with the ships, the situation is that in recent years, the shipping companies have invested massively in increasing capacity, with the result that very often the shipping companies are carrying little else but fresh air in their containers. And to some extent, this is a problem of their own making. So the only way they can actually control the shippers is by withholding, or you could almost say cross-subsidizing their operations by withholding the reefer containers. So it has always been, and yeah, you're right in pointing that out, there's always been the interest of the carriers to make sure that there is more cargo than there are reefer containers. The problem is that because of the massive issue that COVID-19 has created, with everyone trying to reduce costs and control costs, the willingness of shipping companies to invest in reefer containers, they will say, well, we can just basically argue that it's basically they are holding the stronger cards, and they're stronger than ever.
Yeah.
But they will say in response, yes, but the cost of shipping is actually far too low. And it is time that the fruit shippers realize we can't actually live with this level of freight rate. Now, the situation is that freight rates this year have actually shot up in cases between $7,000–8,000 per high cube containers. And this is beginning to hurt the shippers quite clearly.
What has caused this price increase?
The price increase is due to the increasing imbalance
I
of containers and the traditional shortage of reefer containers.
Yeah.
So that is basically which is it's just like a pincer movement.
Yes, I remember back in the day, and I'm sure you do too, of when there were, I think, similar issues in the specialized reefer cargo sector, and all these things kind of are cyclical, and we're going through, I guess, one of these cycles. So it's a new perspective, but it's also kind of an old perspective, if you will. We've been through this before to a certain extent.
Actually, if I may come in here, it's interesting because on the second day, we're particularly I've asked Ole Schack Petersen,
yes,
who actually used to work for LCL, and he used to work still for LCL, but has got a background really in conventional shipping. The whole point really is that conventional shipping has seen a comeback this year, but it may not be for long, because the long-term trend, as will be pointed out at the conference by two speakers on the first day, that the long-term trend is clearly reefer containers, unless the shippers were prepared to charter vessels. And that, of course, is still an option. It does exist. But
Absolutely.
the situation is that the shippers, excuse my French, they have decided to wash their hands and leave it to the logistics operators. Now, you reap what you sow.
Yes.
And that is basically the new balance of power, which is basically brought into stark relief by the critical logistics risk situation that we're faced with COVID now.
Well, certainly, I know that they're talking a lot more about, as relates to Asia, about chartering specialized reefer ships for all sorts of, combinations of cargo. So, citrus out of South Africa, of course, has been happening for years. Kiwi fruit out of New Zealand, of course. Apples too, but also now I think cherries out of Chile. There've been dedicated reefer vessels going into Asia, into China in particular. But that presupposes that there's an onshore logistics as it were, infrastructure that's there to take them, and that's not always the case necessarily in markets. But on that second day, you talk about new opportunities and food logistics solutions. You've got Tui Barford, head of seafood at Maersk, for example, talking there about the seafood market and the difference between fresh produce and seafood. You've also got Theodore Prince from Tiger Cool Express talking about the realignment of perishable supply chains. And then Barry Shelley of Reterms in Singapore talking about replenishment and retail logistics. The kind of food logistics solutions that we're talking about, these are all onshore, are they? That's where they need to be, or is it? Explain a bit more about that.
Well, let me explain. I mean, in terms of seafood, the reason why we actually have asked to Maersk to cover seafood rather than fresh produce at a fresh produce logistics event is indeed to point out the differences and the similarities that exist between.
Yeah.
The situation in the seafood markets, you've got two sides, you've got two cycles. You've got, let's say, the fishermen are just like the farmers. They actually go out to harvest the fish. And what happens is they need to pre-cool it very, very quickly in order to make sure that it doesn't go off. Mm. So there is, to some extent, a similarity between the seafood and the farmers. The problem is that in terms of fresh produce, you've got issues, as we know, we use a controlled atmosphere, and the risk of things of cargo deterioration is probably more visible, and you can smell it in the case of fish than in the case of fruit. Yeah. And strangely enough, that actually means that you have got a tendency in the seafood market to go for frozen. In other words, you have got solutions, for example, by Thermo King, which get provide reefer containers to minus 60 degrees.
Yeah.
Now, you can't do this with fresh produce because otherwise the cell structure of the fruit would simply go bust.
Sure.
So that is the issue why we're going to bring seafood in just as basically a comparison. In other words, and to look at the frozen and the fresh produce market and see possibly if there is also an increased opportunity for long-term, for long-haul shipment for frozen vegetables. There clearly is. If you think about it, the Asia market is primarily a vegetable market.
Yes, of
it's
course.
much more important than fruit.
Yes.
We in Europe think fruit is the first, but it's not the case in Asia and Southeast Asia. So I think there will be an opportunity for, let's say, the Belgians and the Dutch to export their French fries, as an example of clearly two countries which have got a very established frozen market segment. So there is basically a learning opportunity. The other question you're asking about regarding Ted Prince. Now, the Ted Prince is actually an intermodal fresh produce operator operating within the United States. So what they have is fresh produce that is being exported largely from the US West Coast to the US East Coast. And the issues that I have asked, Ted Prince to look at the conference is whether the issues that we discussed on the first day, issue of capacity, are also relating to the operational reality in the US domestic market. The example here being, we know, for example, companies like Carrier or Thermo King, which both provide reefer units, have got two different markets. One is for the deep sea market, and the other one is for the domestic market. The domestic market itself is subdivided into rail, in the case of the United States, which is very important, and of course the trucking market.
Yes.
So I'm asking Ted to explain the rationality of shipping fresh produce by rail across long distances, which obviously is an option.
Yes.
And how he, as an operator, is actually being affected by the big problem of possible manufacturing shortages in companies in actually supplying the reefer units as and when they're needed. In other words, will he be able to source sufficient reefer units for the domestic market, as we've seen also a pull for companies like Carrier, which are manufacturing their reefer units in Singapore, and the problems they have had in supplying the reefer container manufacturing facilities in China with reefer units because of the problem of labor. Labor in Singapore is a big problem. So in other words, this will probably drive automation much further in the future, but may not be a solution in the short term. So again, I'm not really expecting the speakers just to provide these wonderful solutions, but also to look at the challenges that they will be faced in implementing the next phase.
Now,
Barry Shelley, if you want to come in, this is of course a view basically from retail logistics in terms of the issue of replenishment. If you have got any shortages or any hiccups in the supply chain, that means the maritime, the land, to the DC, I mean the distribution center, and onto the retailer. The DCs which are operated by the retailers or usually by third parties, and of course they are into the retail shelf. So again, so how will they face up to the challenge of being able to deliver, getting cargo delivered in the right amount and in the right quality onto the retail shelf?
All right, well, let's go then to the final day of your program for Core Logistics Asia this year, Alex, and it's all about technology and e-commerce and the impact on logistics. And I know this issue of e-commerce is, meat and drink or the bread and butter or the fruits and vegetables, if you will, of what we're talking about in the fruit and vegetable sector all the time, about the way e-commerce has grown and is growing hugely in Asia, and particularly in China, but right across Asia. And it's interesting there to consider about what impact this has on the logistics chain, because of course it goes without saying the logistics chain remains fundamental to this. Is it all then about having, as it were, a much more effective just-in-time logistics solution? Tell us something about how about the subject from your point of view.
It's true. But I just had a long conversation with the team for 2 hours earlier on. I'm still trying to see what basically the main thing that comes out of it. There is a demand from the cargo owners to create as much transparency throughout the supply chain as possible. The problem is that no one actually owns the cold chain. Everyone actually controls a certain segment of the cold chain and has got standard operating procedures to control the section of the cold chain that they are responsible for. But no one actually would like to bear the responsibility for the element they are not responsible for. Classic example is everything that happens before the cross stock and after the cross stock. The cross stock is the place where in a cold store, you've got the reefer container coming in one side in the import cycle, transferred through the cold store, either stored for intermediate purposes in the cold store, or goes directly onto the truck. Now, we do not really have full transparency that goes once the cargo has left the container and is transferred into another modus operandi, so to speak. And that is the the challenge that you have got, as I said, standards are limited to sections of the cold chain. I always say, if you had a complete transparency in the cold chain, you would be able to sell perishable supply chain insurance. But no one can actually provide that. And the key challenge that we'll have on the third day, and which is why I bring sort of e-commerce in there, is that we have got on one hand the B2B market and the B2C market. For the B2C market, it is very, very difficult for the logistics to make money, because if it means actually delivering of one single pallet,
Yes.
One single pallet is okay; it can be broken down. But if you have to sell, well, let's say 1 pint of butter, 1 liter of milk, and 1 salad and 1 potato, for example, what HelloFresh does to basically create individual meals.
Yes.
It is very, very difficult to actually ensure that you can provide for a traditional logistics operator something where there is no return cargo.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, it's the same issue as I bring it back through the imbalance of trade. In other words,
Yes.
if you've got load units that are not full, they don't work. To me, I always say, does a load unit, does a reefer container, or does any load unit have any right to exist if it doesn't contain anything?
That's a very, very philosophical thing to think about, Alex. And let's perhaps leave it there. We've spoken for a good half hour, and I know that you're going to be speaking for a good 3 days, you and your co-presenters at Cool Logistics Asia this year. We look forward to seeing you online on the 18th, 19th, and 20th of November. Thanks very much indeed for being with me today, Alex.
Thank you very much, Chris, and see you soon. Bye.
Okay, a shorter Asia briefing this week, but we'll be back this time next week for a really interesting program all about avocados. And don't forget to join us at Asia Fruit Congress on the 17th of November, and of course at Asia Fruit Logistica on from the 18th to the 20th of November. That's all for today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Asia Fruit Logistica On. It's the fantastic new digital platform for you to do business in Asia this season. Register, log in, then click on any of the 4 buttons to find out more. Explore is our welcome page. It's full of recommendations of people you need to meet and events you need to attend. Our algorithm uses your profile and your activity on the platform to suggest what's best for you. Content is where you see the full program of Asia Fruit Congress On, every single hall forum, and all the presentations by our exhibitors. There's a lot going on. Meet is where your networking and your business meetings happen. It's at the heart of our platform. It's right where you need to be. My Schedule is your personalized timetable of all your meetings and events. Meet. Let's have a closer look at how to schedule your meetings. There are 2 ways to schedule your meetings. Option 1. Under For You, you see the people our algorithm suggests you really should meet. To request a meeting, Simply click on the Meet button and submit your request. It's as easy as that. Option 2. Search for who you want to meet by company, people, product, or national pavilion. Choose the presenter you want to meet and send your meeting request. Simple. Under Company, a detailed company profile, product image, video, and the main presenters appear here. Our personal concierge follows up closely to increase the meeting confirmation rate. Your personal agenda is updated automatically. Meetings only take place with both parties' consent. As an exhibitor, you can start placing your requests from early October. At the designated meeting time on the 18th to the 20th of November, a video meeting takes place with one simple click. Our chat and video function are also working around the clock to take account of the time differences. Want to exhibit? Here are our 3 exhibitor packages. On Business. On Business is our entry-level package. It includes 3 media products with either video and product images. You can have 2 company representatives assigned as presenters in the platform, and each can schedule up to 30 meetings over 3 days. That's up to 60 meetings per company. Simple, effective, and affordable. On Business is the perfect solution for those getting started in Asia. On Premium. Suitable for a larger team, On Premium offers up to 6 media products of either video or product image and 6 company presenters, and each presenter can schedule up to 36 meetings over 3 days. That's more than 200 meetings per company. On Premium also provides a rotating banner under Meet and includes up-ranking of your company and presenter profiles. It means your details are profiled under Meet. On Corporate. On Corporate offers maximum exposure with up to 14 media products of either video or product image and maximum 20 presenters with an unlimited number of meetings. All the up-ranking features and rotating banner from On Premium, plus a 20-minute presentation on content. Special for this year is that all exhibitors can get free access to Asia Fruit Congress On. Our visitor pass costs €34 per person and grants access to Asia Fruit Congress On, hall forums, and unlimited meetings with exhibitors. Visitors with a voucher code get to register for free. Register now at Asia Fruit Logistica On. It's where the fresh produce business in Asia meets. Let's be on. See you in November.
Hi, my name is Laura Martin, and I'm in charge of subscriptions at FruitNet. I want to tell you about FruitNet's new digital magazines. They are free to download, and they offer a range of news, interviews, and industry analysis. You can access them online to read them live, or download them to read them later. They work on your smartphone, your tablet, and your computer. If you subscribe already, just go to the App Store, Google Play, or desktop to download the app. If you want to become a subscriber, please get in touch. Email me on subscriptions@fruitnet.com. In the meantime, this is a short video that explains how the app works. It's really easy. So give it a try and happy reading!
Asia Fruit has recently launched its new digital magazine. You can now read your favourite fresh produce business magazine and catch up on the latest news via your smartphone or tablet device. The new app allows you to share stories within your network and has a handy search function to filter news you're looking for. You can also download new and previous editions of Asia Fruit to read them offline. All Asia Fruit subscribers have access to the new Asia Fruit app, and if you do not have a subscription, contact our team today to organise one. The new user-friendly digital edition has been created by the same people behind apps developed for The Economist, The Independent, and other leading publications. So don't wait any longer. Asia Fruit app is now available to download free from the App Store and Google Play.
through the supply chain, we are committed to flavor.
From the orchard to the packing house to the ripening rooms,
we have a great tasting pear for retailers. Oh, perfect.
At the start of the season, there's requirements as far as how we prune the trees, how we water the orchards, how we thin the different varieties, and then of course, how we handle the fruit during harvest time.
These pears have the best treatment that we can provide for them.
A pear has a unique texture and taste. This is an Anjou pear. When I slice into it, it's soft texture, it's buttery, super juicy, and really flavorful. That is a good pear. That's awesome.
A ripe Anjou pear is the new pear variety.
We are committed to flavor.
Are you?
This is Washington apple country. These fertile valleys and plateaus of America's Pacific Northwest grow the best apples in the world. Whether it's Red Delicious or any other variety, Washington growers make sure that what they grow will offer a consistent taste and bite year-round.
We want to make sure that we pick the varieties that we know are going to be good keepers, that are going to last long.
We want the consumer to have a good eating experience every time they pick up an apple. So we use all this technology to make sure that they do.
Our growers continually improve their growing methods to produce apples that are crisper, juicier, more flavorful, and heartier, so that they keep better in storage.
There's nothing like the taste of a fresh, ripe Washington apple. There's nothing like the smell of a fresh, ripe Washington apple. This is where the best apples in the world are grown.
This is a story about dedication, about respect for nature and for people, about colleagues, partners, entrepreneurial spirit, seeds and vegetables. This is a story about sharing opportunities for growth and a healthy future. Growth forms the basis of life. Growth is in our genes. It creates chances, opens up worlds, new requirements, new tastes, new consumers. But growth brings challenges too. Or are they opportunities? Healthy growth is linked to sharing expertise, knowledge, and inspiration, sharing a passion for Mother Nature and all she produces, sharing the future.
Growing populations and diminishing natural resources are just some of the challenges faced by growers today. As one of the richest sources of vitamins and minerals, producing healthy, tasty, and affordable vegetables in an environmentally friendly way has never been more important. At Syngenta Vegetable Seeds, we're committed to supporting the people who work tirelessly to feed the world, now and in the future. Our seeds have improved resistance and adaptability and bring longer shelf life, unrivaled quality, nutrition, and flavor. We're anticipating the changing needs of our world with 30 crop species and over 2,500 varieties. It's a commitment in every seed. Through close partnerships and local dialogue, we put growers at the heart of everything we do, developing solutions that address their unique challenges and needs. It's our dedication to unmatched quality and the expertise of our people that makes this possible. 2,300 employees in over 50 countries dedicated to the pursuit of best-in-class produce. At our world-leading R&D sites, trialing stations, and facilities across the globe, we work with farmers, academia, and environmental groups to unlock genuine value through innovation, bringing new varieties to market that address disease, changing climates, and evolving consumer demands. Every day, we're making a real-world difference, transforming how crops are grown and enabling growers to sustainably and responsibly make better use of resources.